Now that I think about it and say it out loud, I can think of at least 10 reasons why that coming up with that idea itself is a tragedy. But let's move on to actually to what happens in the story. So what exactly is a tragedy? A tragedy described by the dictionary is a disastrous event that leads to the claiming of lives as well as destruction of property. And today's book epitomizes just that. Today we'll be talking about Aberfan, narrated by Joanne Miller, discussing about a tragic event that happens in 1966 in Wales. Now, this isn't really a book I ever saw myself reviewing, but due to the nature of this book, I feel like more people should know about this. So, essentially, what happens in this book? So that brings me to what happens in this book. So basically, Aberfan is a small town situated in Wales in 1966. Now, it's not really an exciting town. Nothing much is going for it. But all this changes when a German comes across a coal mine, and essentially he alerts the government, telling them all the good things this coal mine could do for them. And the government is like, okay, cool, we will check it out for ourselves. They go, they check it out, and essentially they come to the agreement that yes, this might actually be a turning point for the town as a whole. So they get to working hand in hand with the foreigner, and essentially they start to build this coal mine up, seeing where exactly it could lead them to. So they get to work on the coal mine, and essentially it doesn't take long before they start seeing some profits, some gain from the coal mine itself. According to the book, it's so profitable that they essentially have so much to develop the town itself. We're talking building of schools and hospital infrastructure and all that. So things are really going well for Aberfan and the people that are residing in Aberfan. But all this doesn't take too long until they start realizing the problem. Apparently, there's so much coal production that the waste itself it comes at a rising rate. Like there's so much coal waste that is surrounding the area. So they alert the government again and they ask them, how are we going to do this? To me, off the top of my head, for making so much money from this coal, it's essentially like, let us find the best way to deal with this coal itself and see whether we can move on with the production. So the government comes and they are like, yeah, we are actually making enough money, but this is what we're going to do. They decide to pile the entire coal waste and just heap it on a giant hill that is close by to the city itself or the town. Now that I think about it and say it out loud, I can think of at least 10 reasons why that coming up with that idea itself is a tragedy. But let's move on to what happens in the story. So the government moves on with their plans of packing the entire coal waste residue and heaping it on top of the biggest mountain they could find, located near the town itself. Now everything goes back to normal. Essentially, for the meantime, production goes on. People are reaping the benefits from Aberfan, from the coal mine. Profits are coming in. Everything is peachy. But then again, this doesn't last for very long because according to the book, the coal residue gets so big that it comes crashing down into the city. Now, it doesn't just crash anywhere in the city. It crashes on Aberfan's, on a school in Aberfan. It wipes out a school in Aberfan, essentially. And while it wipes it out, it also claims the lives of 100+ students and teachers that were in the school at the time of the incident, leading to essentially the proceeds of this tragedy we're talking about today. Joe Miller really does an amazing job of describing exactly what happens in this book. Essentially, after the media crew comes into the town to cover this tragedy that has happened in Aberfan, they discover a lot of people with survivor's guilt, essentially. There's a teacher that even comes out and talks about how he almost took his own life because he keeps remembering the scenes of children reaching out to him, for help, and he essentially couldn't do anything about it. So this just goes to show how serious a toll this takes on the people, the survivors, the people in town as a whole. They describe it as this dark cloud that just takes over Aberfan, and essentially nobody really knows what to do. But the media crew really does an important job in getting the idea out there that there's a town in Wales that is really struggling. So essentially, many people around the United Kingdom reach out, and across the entire world reach out to Aberfan, sending supplies, money, just so that they can get back on their feet. And this brings about another problem, because now there's so much money coming into Aberfan that now there's this divide of what to use it to do. Should we give it to the people, to the distraught, to the families of those that are suffering from this casualty, or should we use this money to develop the city and try to get back on track? So now the government is of the latter, and they're like, okay, we need to use this money to get back on track. We need to start rebuilding, we need to start trying, getting back on the process of moving on, basically. And I'm not too much in support of this idea, although they did need to, try to revamp and build everything back up to how it was. I essentially felt like this money needs to go to those that are grieving, because essentially the way the book described it anyways, the people that lost children, as well as parents, teachers that were there at the time, were so distraught and so how would I put it? What's the word I'm looking for? They were so distraught. Let me just leave it at that. And to me, essentially, it felt like they needed this money to get themselves back on track before anything else. But the government didn't see it that way. But to cut a long story short, they eventually decided to split the money, and they gave so much compensation to the families, and they used the rest of the money to try and build and move on from this tragedy that had just occurred and set them back so many years. So essentially, this money does help the families. It helps them in building a community of their own. It helps so many people, leave Aberfan, because how this book describes it, that but everybody in the city essentially wants to leave, and the dark cloud that covers over the city makes it feel less like home. So essentially, it helps so many people leave Aberfan. It helps so many people try to rebuild their lives, and it helps so many people get back in touch with reality, because so many communities are being built, so many ideas are being brought about, so many people are coming together to talk about this tragic event, and they're no more behind closed doors trying to deal with it on their own. So community really plays a really, really huge part in this book as a whole. So essentially, reconstruction starts, and it takes quite a while, because they suffer a setback due to heavy rain carrying most of the coal residue all across the city. And John Miller does a very, very nice job. Not to sound redundant or anything, but the description in this book is so good. It almost feels like you were there experiencing it for yourself. The city just seems like it's in a mess as a whole, and it really takes a long time for them to sort of rebuild and move on from the tragic event, because the idea behind it was that reconstructing the city and putting everything back in place kind of fixates everybody's mind away from the tragedy, just so that they can reinforce the moving on, essentially. So they really pour in all they have into the reconstruction itself. They give it their all, and they make it the forefront of the activities they carry on moving forward. A lot happens in this time frame, and there are even rumors that the Queen will stop by in Aberfan because of how tragic this event actually was. It shows you how far it had gone, and how much people were actually willing to try and lend a hand give as much support as they could. Countries keep pouring in money into Aberfan just so that we can get back on their feet, and this money really helps them in building more communities. The graveyards, the people grieving anyways, are using this money to build communities to like try and stamp their foot in society. Some use this money to leave. So many people use this money to leave Aberfan because the tragedy just is so, it weighs on their mind so much that they couldn't stand to continue staying there. Some people, most people stay and this is a good thing for Aberfan because the amount of people that were leaving, it really made you feel like there was no coming back from that tragedy. So the people that stayed actually played a huge role in and essentially moving forward from it. So that was a good thing. I loved this book so much. I mean, it touches on a lot. One thing that really stands out to me is the concept of community and how much they really reflect on it in this book. It essentially tells you how much you are never really alone in times of tragedies and in times of stress like this. Aberfan essentially moves on, but the scarring is still there. The lives lost, they will never be forgotten. And that's why I really love videos like this, and memoirs such as Joan Miller's Aberfan, because I feel personally that the real tragedy would be forgetting those who lost their lives as well as those who grieve over the losses. So this video as well as the book Aberfan is dedicated to those who lost their lives, and I'd really recommend you read this book. It's amazing. The write-up is just, everything about it is just amazing. It's really descriptive. John Miller does an amazing job in description, and I feel like everybody should read a book like this. So thank you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and if you are new here, I'm doing a thing, so please try and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't also forget to leave a comment, please. So thank you.